How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Big Bosnian man here. Welcome back to a brand new video. Today, we're going to be taking a look at some Pokemon rumors, leaks, theories, all that kind of stuff about Nintendo Switch 2, Legends ZA, and all things in between. Let's get started right off the bat. First things first, going to be this post over on 4chan. I took a screenshot of it and put it over here. But basically, what is it talking about? Well, it says the following. Pokemon Legends ZA and Black and White by Ginger. Which I guess is just a joke on Ninja, but again, doesn't really matter. So, what's the actual post got to say? Well, I'm not going to give any information about PLZA because I don't know anything about it, but I can surely tell that that in the upcoming Nintendo Switch 2 announcement, there'll be a small glimpse of the game, which, okay, so first of all, fair enough, that's one way to put it. But interestingly, though, it does make sense. Like, even if this guy is talking out of his rear end, it relatively has some value to it, right? It is actually a possibility that we will be seeing actual Legends ZA gameplay being first time revealed during a Nintendo Direct. Now, you might argue and say that, oh, they're not going to do that. They're not going to show Pokemon during a Nintendo Direct. Except they've already done that before. They used to do that before Pokemon Directs. Then when Pokemon Directs became a thing, they still did that once in a while. But last year, the first time we got to see like proper gameplay of Indigo Disc and stuff like that was actually, weirdly enough, in a Nintendo Direct. I don't know if you guys remember this, but it was actually the opening segment to a Nintendo Direct. So I'm going to actually find that to show you on screen here what I'm talking about, just to kind of like prove my point. Nintendo Direct Indigo Disc. So if I search that up, I think we can find the actual Nintendo Direct where that was revealed. So this trailer right here from about 3 months ago, right? So this was like the trailer that basically revealed most of the stuff about the Hidden Treasure of Area 02. And like, you guys can see here it is, right? The Hidden Treasure of Area 0 DLC for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, right? This is the video right here. The one that like I'm hovering like on above. So this one, right? This was a Nintendo Direct. This was during the Nintendo Direct. You even have the Nintendo Direct logo in the bottom left there. This was revealed 9 months ago, okay? Weird. Weird that they decided to do this here in this, like, you know, and I still remember this reveal because I was like, what's going on? Because it was a Nintendo Direct and none of us expected to see a Pokemon reveal, like Pokemon announcement or Pokemon news. It just didn't fit with what we expected, right? And that's when we got to see Indigo Disc for the first time properly. We got to see, like, everything. Everything was just shown off to us. This was 9 months ago, by the way, on June 21st. Okay, guys? So, if logically, there is a Nintendo Switch 2 announcement, which I think the current rumored and leaked information, which, by the way, you can trust Nintendo leaks about Nintendo official stuff, a little bit more than Pokemon leaks, because usually those guys have a lot more sources, right? There's way more chances of something about the Nintendo Switch leaking than something about an individual game, because there's way more people in the pipeline for a console release, like a whole console, than just a singular game, right? It's going to be way more hands that it will go through that will possibly give us an actual leak. But what I'm trying to say is this, right? This happened in June. This Direct happened in June. Currently, June is the rumored month for the Switch 2 reveal. That's the rumored month for when we should be expecting the actual reveal to happen. So, by proxy, if we take that into account, like just take the fact that we've got, like, you know, a Nintendo Switch 2 reveal probably happening in June, we can also assume that it would be perfectly a good time to reveal a game that will be on the new Switch, but also on the previous Switches. Pokemon Legends ZA. Also, it's the perfect time to give some gameplay, because by the time June happens, let's do some math here. By the time we get to June, ladies and gentlemen, that will be almost half a year since the reveal of Legends ZA. Like, almost, not exactly. I mean, you gotta remember, Legends ZA revealed in February, so you have about, what, like April? You got March, April, May, and then June itself, because it could be any point in June. So, right? So this was like 4 months in between there. By the time we get to that possible reveal. Because this was a June 21st, by the way. Like, pay attention. It was June 21st. So it was on the tail end, so to say, of actual June. Like, it was on the tail end. So it was perfectly lined up to be then. Because remember, there was no other reveals before this. Like, there was no actual other reveals about this DLC up until this point. We had nothing to work with. So it's pretty much what I'm trying to say is that June is the perfect time for us to officially see news, or something in May. May or June, perfect timings. If they want to line it up with a Switch 2 announcement, that's even better. If they want to just have it as their own separate thing, maybe a press conference, because I've already talked about this, how Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee got revealed. Like, let's see, Let's Go Pikachu press conference. I've talked about this several times in videos now, but that press conference happened in May, right? And that press conference was weird because if you watch the whole reveal of the press conference, if you actually watch it, it was literally a press conference. It wasn't a Nintendo Direct. It wasn't a Pokemon Presents. It wasn't a Pokemon Direct. It was just literally just this. It was a literal press conference, for investors. It's a little bit out there. And I guess for media too, right? But that's when they revealed Pokemon Quest and stuff. So back to the actual rumor, though. What it says here, there will be a small glimpse of the game with someone, while someone is playing. Okay. So that does, again, that sounds so realistic. He says it necessarily doesn't have to be exactly as I'm saying, but there will be a glimpse of it. Okay, so that's a bit weird to kind of emphasize that, but all right. Now he says, and about the outsourced black and white game, I'm not sure if it's even a black and white game. There's an outsourced game, that's for sure. It can even be the Johto game. I mean, it's Gold and Silver 25th anniversary and Heart Gold Soul Silver's 15th anniversary. That's literally what I've been saying in my most recent videos. So this feels like just repeating my words. But literally, that's the way I said it as well, by the way. Like, that's the actual order of how I said it. And they're hinting Johto and Unova. There's a 50-50 chance of the game happening. Well, why would you even bring that up if you don't know anything? So far, the only thing here that makes sense is that, that he says, I can surely tell you upcoming Nintendo Switch 2 announcement, there will be a small glimpse of the game. That's the only thing so far that he said with actual confidence. But whatever. Either way, again, I have said it. I still think Johto makes way more sense this year than Unova. I know that's going to piss off the Unova bros, but it is what it is. It is what it is. I'm just going to be honest. But here's the thing. Johto still made more sense for me this year. 25th anniversary of the original Gold and Silver. 15th anniversary of Heart Gold Soul Silver. We haven't had, there's been way longer of a time since we last had a Johto game than a black and white game. Okay, we've had a black and white, we're closer in time. And also, this isn't a remake generational year, right? This is not supposed to be, Gen 9 is not one we're supposed to get a remake of the next logical remake, right? This should be kind of a filler game, right? That's what's supposed to be coming out this year, which is what a Johto remake would have been. Unova still makes more sense next generation, in Generation 10. That's when it should be coming out logically. And I still think that's going to be the case, but again, I at this point, dude, I don't know. I could always be wrong, right? Either way, the Pokemon Company Incorporated, especially Game Freak, is very alert, and because of that, leaking and stuff is kind of in a pause. But my gut feeling is saying that the leaks will come back from the start of June, July. I'll post again if anything new happens inside of the Pokemon Company. So, again, I don't know where this guy is supposed to be getting this information from, but he says he's getting it from... It seems like he's trying to say that it's from the Pokemon Company Incorporated itself, which is fine. But okay, so, just taking this rumor on face value... Weak, but some of the stuff it says does make sense with logical stuff. So, let's not look at it from, is this a real leak? But let's look at it from what of this stuff actually makes sense. One, the Switch 2 announcement. That's still being, highly touted. I'm going to talk more about the Switch 2 later in this video. But still, the Switch 2 is currently being touted to be coming out next year, but also announced in June. The original idea, I think they said, was that it was supposed to be revealed in March. That's what originally they said, but apparently that was pushed back because of them wanting to have more third-party companies involved, more studios, more games to reveal alongside, something along the lines like that. I don't know the exact wording for what they used, but basically they delayed the reveal in March till later in the year. June is that logical next time frame. June is also when Nintendo usually do their actual directs, right? So if we look at the list of every Nintendo direct, right? If we look up a whole list of every single one of them, just kind of get an overall view of how they do these. So here we go. This is a list of every single Nintendo Direct that has been done over the course of the last whatever amount of years, right? So I'm going to put my camera up in the corner here. So the first one you see right here is obviously going to be the partner showcase we had in February. So keep in mind, that was a partner showcase, right? That wasn't a regular Nintendo Direct. See, Nintendo Direct are the ones highlighted in red here. Those really thick highlighted, right? The kind of bold highlighted ones. The other ones are kind of, I want to say secondary directs. They're not mainline directs. They're not as important because they're usually either focused on one game, indie games, or this one is a partner showcase, which partner showcase again, it's basically the indie one, but for slightly higher studios that aren't simply just indie studios. But if we go back here, so far this year we've only had this. We haven't had a proper Nintendo Direct this year. Last year in February we had a Nintendo Direct, right? We actually had a proper Nintendo Direct, and then we had another one in June. Okay, since we haven't had one in February, it is safe to assume that we should have one at the latest in June. They should be doing one, because if they don't, there will have been, let's see, what was the last one we had actually here? So September, last year in September. The last one was in September of the last year. And if you look here, if you go back in time, usually every year tends to include at least 2 of these directs. And there's always one in June. Look, you got one here in June 15th. You got one here in, this one actually skipped it. Here they did a mini partner showcase in June instead. But overall though, they tend to do like a Nintendo Direct in between at all times. 2020 was an odd one, because I guess that year we just had like, I guess Animal Crossing coming out and whatnot, and they just did a bunch of individual ones for a long time here. We didn't have a one for all of Nintendo. But again, what I'm trying to say is, it makes sense, right? June is oftentimes a very like important month for them. You guys can see here, June 11th, Nintendo Direct E3 edition. Here, same thing, 2018, Nintendo, June, Nintendo Direct E3 2018 edition. Again, you also need time, right? Like, if we look at, let's say, we scroll down to whenever the, I guess, how would you say this? Whenever we got the announcement for the actual Switch, which should have been around, like, here, March 3rd. Like, Nintendo Direct announced it, like, on a Thursday, I guess. Was it this one? This should have been when they announced it, right? For the release next year, on around the same date, which was March, right? It was announced on March, then 2017 it came out in March. It makes total sense. And then in April, you had like literally just the month before, in April, you had enough time to get people excited and be like, hey, the Switch is launching, and hey, let's get excited. So if the console's coming out, let's say June, then logically it would be a good time to announce it. Or else actually, they came out afterwards. Sorry, I confused those things. But this was a good time to announce new games for it. But logically, June announcement, June release next year. Again, the release date actually isn't it's a tentative thing. It's not a guaranteed thing. There's no actual thing that confirms it 100%. But either way, my point is this. We've had one actual Nintendo-related thing this year so far. It was a partner showcase, for crying out loud. That's all we've had, okay? And we are now, like the 4th month of the year already? So yeah, we got 8 more, if you're counting April, we have 9 more months to go, which is, yes, a lot of time for them to do a lot of these directs and stuff. But like recently, for example, last year, when they were doing the Super Mario Bros. Movie, they did a whole Nintendo presentation for 7 minutes for that specific thing. This year, however, they didn't even do an actual presentation. They simply announced the new Mario Bros. Movie, because they announced another one this year. If you guys don't know this, it's on Twitter, but they just simply tweeted it out. They didn't even make a presentation. They just tweeted it out. And I was like, really? You're not going to do a presentation for this? You're not going to do an actual announcement, proper thing for this? No, this is it? I don't know. It was a little bit odd. I'm going to be honest. It was a little bit weird. But what I'm trying to say is that this 100% puts us in a good position for having June as an actual announcement. Shit, they could even do it in May, though May is not oftentimes a date they do here. I don't really see May too often. Usually it's just an indie showcase or something like that, not massive stuff. But again, it's important just to remember. So what I'm saying is the announcement of a Switch 2 would be the perfect time to also show us gameplay of Pokémon Legends ZA, because we don't know what the game looks like. We know nothing. We have 0 gameplay. We need something. Okay? Something is needed. Now, speaking of the Switch, right? Speaking of that, let's go over to this actual post here from none else than Nash Weedle, who's a analyst of leaks, or leak analyst. Now, this guy is really cool because he looks into a lot of these, basically data mines, not data mines, but what are they called again, actually? Trademarks. Yeah, trademarks and filings of trademarks. He says here, Nintendo seems to have a GameCube emulation ready and recently updated a patent based on this system, which joins other recent patents on the Cube console. So apparently, yes, an in-game system, according to further embodiment, the game information storage medium contains at least 2 emulator programs, each of which correspondingly emulates 2 types of second game machines of having different architectures from each other and from the architecture of the first game machine. Game selection program selects one of the emulator programs according to the game program. So basically, yes, they're making an emulator, more or less. They're making an emulator that's going to be seemingly based on this. You have a list, the Legend of Zelda series, Super Mario series, and not exactly sure what that is, but whatever. You guys can see even here, just more details on that. But yeah, they're basically working on a GameCube emulator that will play more GameCube games, I guess, which is fair enough. I don't really know the context of all this. This was posted this year, so yeah. And then you guys can see the actual patent here if you want to have a look at it. This is, I guess, from the patent office in Germany, of all places, which, I mean, sure, don't really know what to say about it, but all right. But yeah, again, if you want to have more look at that, please do. But this could be a good indication for possibly, like, I know people, like, dreaming and hoping, maybe this could mean we could see, whatchamacallit, XD Gale of Darkness and stuff like that showing up. Maybe, if we're lucky. Either way, he also posted this post right here saying, League Express, Sticks command with forced response. Now, in 2022, we talked about the Furfluid technique patented by Nintendo. Now it has been updated with the new applications that we feel more or less resistance in the sticks dynamically depending on what happens in the game. So basically, it's like new joysticks. They're actually going to be changing how the joysticks work. They're going to be kind of, I guess, adding some sort of haptic feedback more so to it. Different from the one that I guess that's kind of what he's talking about. But yeah, so that's another thing that's happening. So this is, again, a lot of indications that there is something happening with the Switch 2. It's definitely in existence. It is being worked on. We just don't know how far along it actually is. Like, we just literally do not know how far along it actually is. There's also apparently a new attachment that was actually filed for a trademark as well. Basically, they're going to be adding some sort of new attachment to the dock. You guys can see right here, Nintendo just filed a patent for some kind of Nintendo Switch dock attachment. And yeah, that's another thing. There's a lot of small stuff that's happening. But yes, here, apparently leaker Nash Weedle has confirmation from a developer about a Switch 2 dev kit. The developer told Weedle that the update now allows them to go one step further. It's speculated that this is the referencing an update to the DLSS upscaling for the Switch 2 dev kit. This is just after Nate the Hate heard that Nintendo was asking developers for footage and images of their Switch 2 games. So this is the important part. They're asking developers for their Switch 2 games. Okay, listen, let's put it like this. Without a doubt, Game Freak are already working on Generation 10, okay? Let's be honest. Generation 10 has probably been in the works for a while now. If Generation 10 is coming out next year, then right now it must still be like, you know, it's being probably worked on, and by now it must be in the phase of literally being created, right? Not done, but being created. So, by that assumption, if it's coming out next year, because again, we do have Legends ZA next year, and that's what the point that gets a lot of people to be like, we're not going to get a Generation 10 next year because we got Legends ZA. And, oh, you know, they're not going to do it because, oh, they want to have, you know, a Generation 10 coming out on the 30th anniversary. Well, guess what? They literally released Gen 9 the same year as Legends Arceus, okay? That means nothing. Also, the anniversaries, cool, they don't always have to line up with a major new generation release. Like, sure, some of them do, undeniably. Like, if you look up the actual Pokemon anniversaries here, Pokemon anniversaries, let's see. If we look at Pokemon anniversaries, right? Now, the 25th anniversary was one of the biggest ones. That's the one people, like, talk about the most, because the anniversary of the 25th anniversary was in 2021. Now, if we think about back to 2021, that was, give or take, the release of, what was that release of, actually, now that you think about it? That was the release of, who lines up then? That must have been, because in 2019, we had Sword and Shield. 2020, we had, so that would have been BDSP, right? BDSP came out on the 25th anniversary, if I'm not wrong, right? So the 25th anniversary of Pokemon, celebrated here, unless this information is false, which I doubt it is, but here, January 1st until December 31st, 2021, right? 25th anniversary. This is, again, the same year. We got new Pokemon Snap. We also got Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, right? And we got Legends Arceus announced. So that was a big year. We had 3 Pokemon games pretty much released that year. It's pretty huge if you really think about it. It was a big one, right? New Pokemon Snap. The Master's Journey series was revealed. Again, it was a big year. Pokemon Unite was also released, right? Again, point is, it was a big year. But it wasn't a new generation year. And this was the 25th anniversary. Now, I think the reason people think it's going to be that important is because if we look at like the 20th Pokemon anniversary, right? Like if we just go back here, let's see, we look up 20th anniversary, right? Like what did they do for the 20th anniversary of Pokemon, right? So here it is. So if you look up the 20th anniversary of Pokemon, that was in 2016. See, this is the only time where I would argue that, yeah, you know what? This year actually made sense because this is the same year we got none else than Pokemon Sun and Moon. And the year before that, they didn't do a single game that year, which was, of course, 2015. That's the year they skipped a game. And what do we get instead of that year having a new Pokemon game? Well, what we got instead was nothing, right? We got nothing. We had no remakes. We had nothing. It was literally an empty year. And instead, the new generation came out exactly as it should have 3 years later in 2016, right? Because like, here's how it usually works with Pokemon. Every generation when it comes out, right? Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, Gen 4, Gen 5, whatever. After the first mainline games of that generation release, there is exactly 3 years until the next one comes out. At least that's the formula they've been following since Black and White, right? Since Black and White, that's the formula they've been following. And if you look at back then, for this Pokemon anniversary, the only really big thing we got was, of course, Pokémon tournaments, Pokemon Go, and we also had, Mystery Dungeon came out, we had Rumble World, Detective Pikachu, and of course, Sun and Moon. So there's a lot of big things, right? There was a lot of big things announced then. However, if we look at, like, for example, this year, so far, this is not an anniversary year. This is a regular year. There's not really a lot of stuff this year. We only really know about Pokemon TCG Pocket and Legends ZA. We have no gameplay, basically, of anything ZA related. And if they're going to release ZA next year, right, will they then skip what into what? What would it be then? 2026 to get a new generation? Which means there will be 4 years between one gen to the next gen. The only way that would be the case is if they have internally decided to change things up. And maybe we're going to be seeing more smaller games from Pokemon, more like mini remake games and stuff like that from other studios like Pokemon Works. Now, if you guys don't know Pokemon Works is a new company that's going to be working alongside ILCA to create new Pokemon games. They're a whole new studio. They're a whole new company that's going to be a subsidiary of the Pokemon Company, and they're going to be working on actual new products. So the only way I can see this is, the only way that Game Freak delays a new generation release, because remember, this is the most important thing. I look at this from the business side of it, not from the side of like wishful thinking, right? But from a business perspective. From a business perspective, Pokemon is currently really low, okay? Like Pokemon Go overall falling in popularity. Earnings, for the first time in a long time, Pokemon Go earnings have gone down. Pokemon's still going strong though. Selling a lot of merch, selling a lot of this, selling a lot of that, whatever. However, every year that there is a new generation that introduces new Pokemon, new merch, new plushies, new toys, new trading card games. Because remember, Legends ZA could be great next year to keep people going with the TCG, but it's only going to last so long. Just like Legends Arceus, it doesn't hold people over for that long, right? You need a new generation to introduce a vast array of new Pokemon. Unfortunately, if you don't have a big game to follow that, you don't have a lot of merch to be able to create. It becomes rougher and harder, way harder to actually do that. So what I'm trying to argue, and the point I'm trying to make here, is they need a new generation. They need new games. Maybe this year they skip something, but there's no way they're going to skip putting out a new generation next year. At least that's the way I view it. People thought the same thing when they announced Legends Arceus, and also BDSP. When people heard that it's coming out in 2022, when people heard that, they were like, oh, no new generation next year, oh, no new generation, or we're gonna get us some DLC announced or whatever during Pokemon Day. And literally 1 month after Legends Arceus' release, literally Legends Arceus came out in January. In February we had Pokemon Day. They're like, hey guys, forget about Legends Arceus. We're announcing a new generation. Nothing there would really stop them, because new gens, the 3-year span of them, it exists for a reason. Like the 3-year span exists for a big reason. It's to keep people invested. You got to keep people invested with the mainline games. That's what keeps people going. And also, new generations always sell the best. And Pokemon being one of the first things to come out on the Switch 2, if the Switch 2 is coming out next year, bro, that would be massive. Like, think about how huge that would be. Now, usually Pokemon never starts off, let's say their franchise or whatever. They don't really like to start off as like early on with a whole new generation or a new console. However, the Switch 2 is still just the Switch 2. It's the same as going from the DS to the 3DS, right? It is a leap, but the leap isn't going to be as big of a leap as going from, like, I don't know, the Game Boy Color to the 3DS or something. You know what I mean? It's not that big of a leap. It's not like massive in a sense. It's just like better hardware, more or less. Like, let's be honest. That's what I'm trying to say here, is that there's always going to be a chance for that. But anyway, that's pretty much where that's at. To finish things off, we do have also this post right here. Now, this is in reference to something that was posted by Ku, who was talking about, let's talk about some interesting stuff. Raid Fort is actually an intentionally criminal in the settings. She also got a side quest during the DLC development, but almost nothing was implemented in the final game. Clavel only knows that she's sus, but doesn't know her actual identity. Maybe we should ask the player to keep an eye on her. Now, he said this And he says that this apparently was scrapped information. And according to Solar's, he just has some thoughts on it. This is also a big statement from Ku. I encourage people to think that that he didn't have real info for the Indigo Disc to look back at what he shared. There were countless things that he shared that were confirmed in DLC. On top of that, he was very accurate for many previous games as well, especially PLA and Scarlet and Violet. Now, based on the track record, there is no reason not to believe him at the features that were cut from the DLC, which, yes, please remember, stuff will get cut out of games. Like, why are people so, like, people just look at this stuff very black and white. They don't look at the middle section, the gray areas. They don't look at that. They just look at it very much like, nope, that turtle's green. I don't care about those other colors on it. It's green. You know, but, like, you have to look at the fact that there are going to be things canceled, removed, scrapped, okay? Like, for the love of God, if I looked at the amount of videos that I've scrapped, there would be a literal, like, you can make a museum out of all of them. You know what I mean? The point is, there's always going to be things scrapped and left on the cutting room floor. That's something that always happens. This is not out of the question, right? Now, he says, based on tracker, there is a reason not to believe him. There is no reason not to believe him about the features that were cut, especially for me personally, when I've heard things that corroborate things he said from other people behind the scenes. And especially since we as a community know that Scarlet and Violet was verging on incomplete content, which is very true. We even know this because we've seen actual data mined stuff from the game that featured insides of buildings. We never got to go inside of buildings in Scarlet and Violet. There's very few places we can do that. But there was actually inside locations from the data. So we know there was more cut terraforms and states, the cut PK Hex feature facilitated by Snacksworth's brother, and more like this new array for information. Now, has Ku mixed up a few details here and there? Has he messed up a few times? 1 out of 10 times, kinda, yeah. But I kind of wish people would understand that it's literally impossible to have a 100% accurate track record when it comes to something that is still in development. Things can change in development, and human error exists too. No leaker would ever be perfect with as much info as Ku has shared over the years, which is true. Remember, he's been doing this since, I want to say, the DLC of Sword and Shield. Okay, so it's ever since the DLC of Sword and Shield, he's been leaking information. I still remember him leaking info and riddling stuff about, like, the Crown Tundra. I still remember that. Now, we still don't know if there's a black and white remake game in 2024, so that point is moot until then. And still, Ku has never outright said that it is happening. Other reliable people were told the same info, so it's even possible they all got bad info, which is true. Remember, Ku said this. Pioro, who's a legit leaker. People trust Pioro's word like it's from the Lord himself, right? If you look up Pioro here, you guys will see the man literally, like, people worship him because people believe everything he says, and the man has been correct. Like, he announced, like, for example, for Mario Day, he already leaked a bunch of stuff for Mario Day ahead of time, and people, people believe him because guess what? He's oftentimes correct. Even about the partner showcase, he exactly knew about these Dolphin Partners thing. Was about specifically, like, Endless Ocean getting a remake, and he knew that. He knew that ahead of time, and even he tweeted out, okay? Even he himself said, replied to someone about Game Freak, not specifically this tweet right here about Game Freak, but specifically about, like, the Pokemon Presents, that he didn't know anything about the Presents, but that he had heard about a Unova remake, and that he didn't really know much about it besides that fact, which he heard about last year. Now, he says the following, which is, lastly, on top of all this, no one knew about Pokémon Legends ZA. No one. The only person that came close was Ku, who hours before it was revealed shared the literal codename of PLZA. No one else shared that. So I'd say you can trust 95% of what he says is true. Still, it would be wise to test everything he says because some things change, and test yours and others' interpretations of what he says, because people convince themselves of what he means and then they're let down because they were wrong, which is true. Again, to be fair, we do assume a lot, but the problem is with Ku, and I think this is the issue, and I hope he could understand this by me saying this. The problem is sometimes he makes his riddles too vague to such a level that you could argue anything. Okay, like, you could literally just argue that, like, he basically makes he can make a tweet where he says, like, I don't know, Delta, and you're like, okay, is he talking about Delta episode from Oras? And then eventually you come to all these conclusions, and then you're like, oh my god, guys, he was talking about, like, there's going to be a Delta episode in this new upcoming game. And then in reality, then he reveals, he's like, actually, guys, Delta on these nuts. Like, he made, like, a lot of times he can kind of do a lot of that, which is a little annoying. If he was just outright with it, or made the riddles, like, more obvious in a sense where there's no chance of him being able to argue anything else than what it is. The problem is sometimes when he makes it vague, it makes it impossible to be able to be like, hey, you're talking out of your bum here. You know, what you're saying here is not legit. You know, there's no value in what you're sharing. So that's kind of where I'm at with this. Like, I just wish he was a little bit more upfront with it and just said, you know, some straight up stuff. And he's not wrong about this, though. Like, if you actually look at some of the stuff Rayford says, she is a little bit cray-cray. Like, I've said this from the beginning, man. She's really way too into the whole, like, ruinous treasures and releasing them. And she does feel kind of evil. I'm not going to lie. Like, even here, she says, it just so happens that I need an adult male as a sacri. Literally, she was going to say sacrifice. I mean, assistant, care to help? Like, she literally is evil. Like, there is something wrong with her. Like, yeah, like, it's ridiculous. But again, I trust, like, Waku's information. I still trust it. The problem is, he hasn't given anything lately. And to be fair, last year he did announce, and for those who don't know Ku, he's been leaking since about you know, Sword and Shield's DLC time. So he has been leaking information since then. And I say leaking, but he like makes riddles and then he clarifies them after the point. But usually when you look at it, you're like, okay, you know what? Yeah, I can see what you mean there. Point is this, right? The man has been correct for a long time. And without a doubt, I think his information is valuable. But he did say last year at some point that in 2024, he was not going to do stuff for for almost 6 months in the year. He was going to be just kind of doing nothing because there isn't any information. And to be fair, he's kind of right. We're not going to really see. We saw Pokemon Day, Legends ZA. It was a logo. That's all we got. We'd have no gameplay. And he's not wrong. The next time frame for an actual trailer to happen logically should be May, June, or August, which is half a year later, guys. It's just reality. So in that sense, the guy is not too wrong. He ain't too far off in that regard. Now, before we finish this off, I want to talk about this little theory right here. Now, this is posted by the Kalos Collective. Shout out to them. They said, fun fact about Zygarde's best in Terminus Cave. He says here, it's shaped like the complete Zygarde. So if we look right here, the actual Terminus Cave, and he says, the 3 of the 4 items here are the Creation Trio's orbs. Now, I wonder if Zygarde has closer connections to Arceus than it lets on. And Soul says, interesting. What a wonderful little find. I think I can see the complete Zygarde shape here. Maybe this was actually a cheeky hint Game Freak left in Pokemon X and Y to tease what Zygarde would eventually become in Pokemon Z. But then Z didn't happen. Because yes, see, the reason 2015 was a weird time, because in 2013 was the release of X and Y. 2014 was ORAS. 2015 was meant to be Pokemon Z. Just like every previous year, they'd done that, right? Every previous year, they'd done exactly that. If you look at, for example, Black and White, I think Black and White was like, what, 2010 or 2011, Black and White, and then Black and White 2 was like 2012. And like they kind of just follow that right up with X and Y right after Black and White 2. Like right after they followed it up with that. What I'm trying to say here though is that usually there was very few years in Pokemon's release schedule where they didn't put something out. There would always be like a remake or something to kind of keep people busy. 2015 barely had anything, okay? But then 2016 was bam, you know, bunch of Pokemon games, bunch of spin-offs, freaking Pokemon Go release. It was massive, okay? Massive. But 2015 was an empty year, but it was supposed to have Pokemon Z. But I guess because of the rush of Pokemon Sun and Moon, they kind of just scrapped Legends of Pokemon Z. Like, Pokemon Z was in the works. It was a trademark name. It was actually being worked on. But I guess they just decided to scrap it because, well, for whatever reason, right? Along the way, they decided, you know what? It's not worth the effort. It's not worth doing. Which is unfortunate, to be honest with you. It does make me feel a little bit, like, sad about it. But I guess it is what it is. So, yeah. Now, before we continue, I also want to bring up this post right here, which is, I already talked about this in the previous video a little bit, but he says, they said here, information about the Pokemon World Championship 2024 will be revealed at the EUIC closing ceremony on Sunday, April 7th. So the World Championship, of course, is the Pokemon Championship that happens every single year. I think this year is taking place in Hawaii this year, but why is this important? Well, you don't have to care about the championship itself. However, sometimes to coincide with the World Championship, they do a Pokemon Presents or they do an actual trade reveal during the championship. So if the championship is happening in August again, just like it did last year, or how it pretty much does every single year, I think, then logically, we should be seeing some official news guaranteed in August. However, there's always a chance it could happen before that. So Soul says a little Pidgey's about to get stitches. Jokes aside, I think April 7th is a little too soon for the Pokemon Company to announce anything else outside of Pokemon World's 2024 info, yet she makes it seem like the ceremony might be a bit more. Announcements I'm waiting for: the next Presents announcement, Pokemon Works, Legends ZA teaser, Black and White remakes. Most of these things are very unlikely, but nothing is impossible. True. And this is the actual reveal.
Actually told me As for world states, might want to tune in to the EUIC closing show. But that's all we've got for now. A little Pidgey actually told me, as for world states, might want to tune in to the EUIC closing show.
There you go. So you might want to tune in. Why would this be important to tune in? Why would it be necessary to tune in? I don't know. It's a little bit odd. I don't know what kind of announcement that's going to be. I don't know if it's like a big thing for us or if it's just something related to the World Championship. But it's just worth to keep in mind. Like, it's just worth to remember. And Gule here says something interesting. Perhaps it will be a teaser about an announcement. They'll make a closing ceremony at Worlds. Regardless, it's interesting they're hyping the event up itself. I was expected something could be announced there for months, so it's got me even more intrigued, which, yes, it is true. And Yami even says here, well, more players in special competitions are going to need reservation hotels or the spectators too, and Hawaii are not especially cheap in the high season. It's a good time to have the finals of EUIC be the date of the actual Worlds. Logically, having Worlds earlier in the year would probably be the smartest, or in winter maybe, I would argue would be better, because then it should be cheaper. But then again, it's Hawaii, so isn't it just kind of round the year warm? I don't really know, but yeah, I don't know why they chose Hawaii, man. I don't know. It's very expensive, actually. Yeah, I looked up trips there. Very expensive. Either way, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for the big round Bosnian man. I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Peace out. Have a great day, and bye-bye.